Good evening, goeiemorgen, and welcome to our daily devotional reading. A special welcome, of course, to the members of our Make-Believe Monastery, those subscribed and or commenting. It's really good to have you here. I hope you are well. You may have noticed that I intend to do so, the description of the videos. And I might go into my thesis on truth today. I'll call it T, because apparently that's what philosophers do. And my mom always says that there's nothing that T can't fix. So my theory will be called T. But before we get there, Sunday, I hope it was a good day. Tomorrow most of us are back in the rat race. Obligations, demands, privileges bestowed on us by life, the universe, and everything. But for now, turn inwards, open your heart and your mind, and let's listen to Plato. Stranger. Then, as I was saying, let us first of all obtain a conception of language and opinion, in order that we may have clearer grounds for determining whether not being has any concern with them, or whether they are both always true, and neither of them ever false. Theaetetus. True, stranger. Then now, let us speak of names, as before we were speaking of ideas and letters, for that is the direction in which the answer may be expected. Theaetetus. And what is the question at issue about names? If you want to know the answer, you have to know what the question is. Stranger. The question at issue is whether all names may be connected with one another, or none, or only some of them. Theaetetus. Clearly the last is true. Stranger. I understand you to say that words which have a meaning when in sequence may be connected, but that words which have no meaning when in sequence cannot be connected. Theaetetus. What are you saying? Stranger. What I thought that you intended when you gave your assent, for there are two sorts of intimation of being which are given by the voice. Theaetetus. What are they? Stranger. One of them is called nouns, and the other verbs. Theaetetus. He must be very young, seeing his next question. Describe them. Stranger. That which denotes an action we call a verb. Theaetetus. Oh yes, true. Stranger. And the other, which is an articulate mark set on those who do the actions, we call a noun. Quite true. A succession of nouns only is not a sentence, any more than of verbs without nouns. I do not understand you. Stranger. I see that when you gave your assent you had something else in your mind. But what I intended to say was that a mere succession of nouns or of verbs is not discourse. Theaetetus. What do you mean? I mean that words like walks, runs, sleeps, and any other word which denotes an action, however many of them you string together, do not make discourse. How can they? Or again, when you say lion, stag, horse, or any other words which denote agents, neither in this way or stringing words together do you attain to discourse, for there is no expression of action or inaction, or of the existence of, or of existence or non-existence, indicated by the sounds. Until verbs are mingled with nouns, then the words fit, and the smallest combination of them forms language, and is the simplest and least form of discourse. Again, I ask, what do you mean, stranger? When anyone says a man learns, should you not call this the simplest and least of sentences? Theaetetus, yes. Stranger, yes, for he now arrives at the point of giving an intimation about something which is, or is becoming, or has become, or will be. And he not only names, but he does something by connecting verbs with nouns. And therefore we say that he discourses. And to this connection of words we give the name of discourse. True. And as there are some things which fit one another and other things which do not fit, so there are some vocal signs which do and others which do not, combine and form discourse. Discourse. Quite true. There is another small matter. What is it? A sentence must and cannot help having a subject. True. And must be of a certain quality. Certainly. And now let us mind what we are about. The other translation says, let's turn our attention to ourselves. Theaetetus, we must do so. Stranger, I will repeat a sentence to you in which a thing and an action are combined by the help of a noun and a verb, and you shall tell me of whom the sentence speaks. Theaetetus, I will, to the best of my power. Stranger. Theaetetus sits. Not a very long sentence. Theaetetus. Not very. Stranger. Of whom does the sentence speak? And who is the subject? That is what you have to tell. Theaetetus. Of me. I am the subject. Stranger. Or this sentence again. What sentence? Theaetetus, with whom I am now speaking, is flying. Theaetetus. That also is a sentence which will be admitted by everyone to speak of me and to apply to me. Stranger, we agreed that every sentence must necessarily have a certain quality. Yes. And what is the quality of each of these two sentences? Theaetetus. The one, as I imagine, is false, and the other true. Stranger. The true says what is true about you. The other translation has it. The true says that which is. Theaetetus. Yes. Stranger. And the false says what is other than true. That which is not. Yes. and therefore speaks of things which are not as if they were. True. And say that things are real of you which are not. For as we were saying in regard to each thing or person, there is much that is and much that is not. Quite true. Stranger. The second of the two sentences which related to you was first of all an example of the shortest form consistent with our definition. Theaetetus. Yes, this was implied in recent admission. Stranger. And in the second place, it related to a subject. It's of something, the other translation has. Theaetetus. Yes. Stranger. Who must be you and can be nobody else. Unquestionably. Stranger. And it could be no sentence at all if there were no subject, for, as we proved, a sentence which has no subject is impossible. Quite true. When other, then, is asserted of you as the same, and not being as being, such a combination of nouns and verbs is really and truly false discourse. Theaetetus. Most true. Stranger. And therefore thought, opinion, and imagination are now proved to exist in our minds, both as true and false. Theaetetus. How so? Stranger. You will know better if you first gain a knowledge of what they are, and in what they severally differ from one another. Theaetetus. Give me the knowledge which you would wish me to gain. Oh, I love that. Give me the knowledge which you would wish me to gain. Stranger. Are not thought and speech the same? With this exception that what is called thought is the unuttered conversation of the soul with herself. Quite true. But the stream of thought which flows through the lips and is audible is called speech. True. And we know that there exists in speech Theaetetus. What exists? Stranger. Affirmation. Theaetetus. Yes, we know it. Stranger. Then the affirmation or denial takes place in silence and in the mind only. When the affirmation or denial takes place in silence and in the mind only, have you any other name by which to call it but opinion? The other translation has belief. Theaetetus. There can be no other name. Stranger. And when opinion or belief is presented, not simply, but in some form of sense, would you not call it imagination? Certainly. Stranger. And seeing that language is true and false, and that thought is the conversation of the soul with herself, and opinion is the end of thinking, and imagination or fantasy is the union of sense and opinion. The inference is that some of them, since they are akin to language, should have an element of falsehood as well as of truth. Theaetetus, certainly. Stranger. Do you perceive then that false opinion and speech have been discovered sooner than we expected? For just now we seem to be undertaking a task which would never be accomplished. I perceive. Then let us not be discouraged about the future, but now having made this discovery, let us go back to our previous classification. What classification? We divided image making into two sorts. The one likeness making, the other imaginative or fantastic. True. And we said that we were uncertain in which we should place the Sophist. We did say so, and our heads began to go round more and more when it was asserted that there is no such thing as an image or idol or appearance, because in no manner or time or place can there ever be such a thing as falsehood. True, and now, since there has been shown to be false speech and false opinion, they may be imitations of real existences, and out of this condition of the mind an art of deception may arise. Quite possible. Thus far our scripture of the evening. I fear I know nothing and my tea might be very cold. Or not everyone's cup of tea. That's for sure. The rules we play by. I wrote down the language rules we play by for discourse. I don't think we always appreciate how many rules there are that we play by in order to be able to interact with our fellow human beings. And how necessary it is to master those rules. And how debilitating and tragic it is when one is unable to do so. I was in the park today with a bunch of people, and a stranger was clearly high as a kite. Just kind of acted as if he was part of our group, but in a very strange way that did not make sense at all and was discoherent, and his speech was discoherent. Of course, he was out of his mind, high. And from his appearance, it was clear that this is not an unusual state for him to be in. And it's quite a privilege to be able to play the game. And to play it well, that's next level. Because we are human. We do not want to interact with people who do not play the game by the rules. Which brings me to truth. Appropriate that I took a sip of the tea. Now my ideas are still very much unformed. Oopsie. I rewatched the video more Alex posted yesterday. It was a bit... Yesterday I couldn't process it. It was too in your face, if that makes sense. I never know how to interpret anything. Situations, I mean, not language. Occurrences, synchronicities, signs and wonders. I see so many signs and wonders, but I don't know how to interpret them. So yesterday I didn't. And today I also didn't. Like, I tend to just push all those things to the back of my mind and forget about it. But I went back to the video for the video's sake. And what struck me yesterday, and it struck me less hard today, was Joe mentioned at a certain point language as truth as kind of a measure, a way to keep people in place. Now, I did write it down. Let me see if I can find it without actually fucking everything up. Signals an intolerance for disagreement about something. So intolerance for disagreement about something. There is a cost on you for getting it wrong. In other words, quite a useful social purpose. I wrote other things down as well. Probably I'll just come back to them. That is what hit me yesterday. Because what is truth? And today I listened to Alex talk with John Lennox. Darling old man. And at the end of the talk, the man speaks about truth and he says the complete different thing. But he's adorable, but So, log-like, when it comes to log-like questions, like, is the log really in the forest, and can you do log-like things with it? Then it's simple. But when we come to questions of, yes, it's true, yes, what is the truth of how to be, and religious questions, and is there something, someone, and who is this something or someone then? It's not quite so simple. At least, no, it's not quite so positive. I think many people who have left a faith experienced the backlash of questioning the truth. And often the backlash comes from people who never gave it a second thought. That's just what everyone believes. So I'm going to drop the truth, and I'm going to adopt the true. And I know this is a very silly mind game, and it may not make sense. Though in my mind it does make sense. Because the true feels closer to the real. And in that there's a sense of honesty, of commitment, I want to say, but because both Alex and Joe is kind of despising of the idea of truth as correspondence. But when there needs to be some sort of, because there can be falsehoods, there can be something false, there has to be some sort of bond, connection between what is and the true. And the true without a capital T feels closer to maybe accidentally stumbling upon that. A long time ago, and I think you can find this video still on Sarah's channel, I had a conversation with a bunch of my sisters, and Rebecca spoke of lies. I need to rewatch that. I think it's the one where she's in the garden. I'm not quite sure. Because I see her and she's in the garden. And she spoke of the value of lies in art and in being real or getting closer to what is true. So that made me think. And of course I stumbled upon Heidegger's use of the Greek word aletheia, unconcealment, as truth, and I have no idea now what he says about it. But then I was thinking, maybe there's something beneath that. There's that which has been unconcealed, and people cling to that because there's a lot of safety in knowing. And your opinions and beliefs being justified by many, if not all. But the real is always deeper. It's always deeper. And I doubt that I for sure, will ever be able to get to it, but that which is still concealed is not false. And if truth is used as a measure stick and a stick to hit with, if you stray, we will never have the freedom to search for that deeper, as yet concealed disclosure of reality. So truth, I guess, to me is more true. Whatever that means. I do love truth, the idea of truth. But maybe I actually love true, the true. And I think John always says something to be real is a fundamental human need. Yeah. I'm tempted to say I hope this helps. Not because I think it can help in any way, but because it's been a long time since I used my toothbrush on some angelic being. May the spirit of Sophia be with you.